So I'm big on this thing of creating multiple sources of value. Multiple sources of value. And by that I mean creating tangible sources of value, whether it's in the form of products, services, digital products, ministry, sharing your gift, etc. Taking what's inside of you as a gift, putting it into tangible forms and giving it to the world. So if you've got a gift of singing, whether it's recording, yourself singing, whether it's to record your audios and share them with people to encourage them, whether it's the gift of writing, to write and publish, giving your gift in tangible sources of value, right? So that the world can be blessed by it. And I'm really big on encouraging people to create multiple sources of value. And I've made it my mission to give multiple sources of value in increasing measure on a consistent basis. Right? And I try as much as I can. Probably at a pace slower than what I would wish to, but that's what I'm trying to do. The challenge that I find myself facing is in integrating the forms of value that are very divergent from one another. What I mean by that is that I believe I've got value to give in the area of, say, architecture, right? Which is where, I gain my educational training and background and so on. I believe I've got value to give in the area of, spiritual growth, having learned from very awesome teachers, having studied for myself, having gone through various experiences. And in the area of value creation, just mainly born out of a passion of mine, not so much because of a deep expertise. But those are various different types of knowledge. And I was having a conversation with a brother of mine on a similar topic, and he was talking about the fact that these things aren't detached from each other because of the fact that they're coming from the same source, right? They're springing forth from the same fountain, which is you as a person, you as the solo creator. And so, by virtue of the fact that they're coming out of the same mind and heart, they are already integrated. The challenge is how you communicate that integrated value to an audience that's willing to receive it, right, in an authentic way. Where it's a challenge is where I found it to be a challenge is in that not everyone is willing or able to receive certain bits of information while connected to other forms of value. So, for example, when I talk about the area of spiritual growth and abiding in Christ and communion with Christ and so on, while I may make analogies to my architectural work and my architectural background, it's not something I can really say I can tie together to say these are the architectural lessons that you learn out of, your spiritual growth or whatever. I don't know, maybe it's possible. But I just find that it's difficult for audiences or the people who I try to create value for to appreciate an integrated approach to those various forms of value. And so the challenge I find myself facing is in how to actually integrate those various forms of value. And I'm not yet convinced that integrating them is, number one, possible, or that it's necessary at this point. And so I'm going to share a bit on how I'm trying to solve that problem for myself. Isn't that when it comes to these various different forms of value, I'm trying to create multiple forms of tangible value, but within those different aspects as categories. So what I mean by that is that for my spiritual growth, material, content, and value, I try to house everything under the one body of this ministry, communion with Christ. To say that, okay, the books I'm writing in spiritual growth, the content I've produced, the material and guides, and other things that are still coming, the speaking appointments, etc., all fall under the umbrella of communion with Christ, right? As a ministry or as what some would call a brand. So communion with Christ on its own exists as a brand, but it is an umbrella for all those forms of tangible value that I'm talking about in the area of spiritual growth. Then there's the architecture aspects, right? Which I might not necessarily be as far as I am with communion with Christ and some of those things, but genuinely believing that I have value to give in those areas beyond the actual practice in my career, right, which we offer to clients and whatnot. But there are various other forms of tangible value that can be created and that are being created. But those being under the umbrella of the value architects. And then in the area of value creation, right, which some might call solopreneurship, though I don't really like the term. Not that I don't like the term, I struggle to be comfortable with the term solopreneurship and entrepreneurship. I feel like those are huge labels, and I'm not yet comfortable with them. So I just call myself a value creator, in that I'm trying to create value and do so and put them in tangible forms of value. But the point I'm making, without digressing, is that in the area of value creation, is a brand on its own, right? Value creation or value creators, right? Value creation agency. And that's something that I really find myself struggling with, genuinely so, to say how to create forms of tangible value that are so divergent from one another so that the audience still can find the most value out of it. Because not everyone who's interested in the architecture stuff will be interested in the spiritual stuff. Or not everyone who's interested in the spiritual stuff will necessarily be interested in the value creation stuff, right? But all of those matter so much to me, enough for me to say I still want to pursue building them. Especially so that I can, die empty. There's this concept by Miles Monroe where he talks about the graves being full. The grave is one of the places that are full of potential because people have died without having realized their potential. And I've made it my burden to say, I want to die empty, right? I want to die having at least fulfilled as much as I could to give value out of service to God and service to my fellow man. But I'm trying to work through that problem, and that's a problem I'm working through. Right now, that's how I'm trying to work through the problem, by creating those three categories or those three brands around those different pieces of content, different pieces of material, and the different sources of tangible value then falling under one of those three categories. Where one can say that maybe they're being integrated is in things like this, right? It's in me as Simon, or as the person, the individual from whom all these things emanate, talking about them in this way, right? Sharing the stories, sharing the experiences, because the integration is in the person, not so much in the tangible product or in even the audience. The integration is in the person. And I think of it like a channel. If you think about a channel, whether it's SABC or ABC or whatever, that's one channel that has many different shows, right? There's the news, there's the soap operas, there's the music show, there's the children's show, there's the educational show, there's the game show. But all of those shows are contained under one channel that houses all of those things as different sources of value. And then different audiences then resonate with the different pieces of material. So those who like game shows will then follow those and log in for that. Those who like the sports shows will log in for that. But all under the one channel. And maybe this way of communicating or talking about them is a way to integrate all of that material. I think so for now. But I just wanted to share that that's a challenge I'm working towards in trying to create multiple sources of value, and how I'm working through it and towards it. I know that there's always this thing that some people say where it's like, if you focus on too many things, you end up not being good at any of them, right? And I believe that to be true to some degree, that if you try to do too many things at once, there's a statement I hold that says, if you try to juggle too many balls, you'll end up dropping at least one of them, right? And that's definitely true. But where I see commonalities in these things such that it doesn't necessarily feel like too many things happening at the same time. But where I will say that I work through that problem, right, the problem of multiple things at the same time, is in working on one thing at a time, right? So trying to work on one book at a time, trying to work on one product at a time, trying to work on one guide at a time, finish that, then work on the next one. That's how I'm trying to work through that. But it's not always easy, man. It's not always easy. Focus is a really huge skill that takes training and time. But we'll work around that and maybe we'll hear the thoughts. But anyway, let me know what you think about that. I just wanted to share those thoughts. Looking forward to hearing yours and see each other on the other side. Much love.